This is the primitive aorta, and it develops in your adult aorta. So during this stage of development, if you have insults, you can have problems such as your coarctation of the aorta. So this is very lengthy. What I'm trying to point at is that you have to know the days when these occur. Okay? And you have to know what will happen during this day. So, for example, if you're given a case of a mother who is approximately 4 weeks, so that's around 20 days. My math's all wrong. Okay, that's around 28 days. So that's the stage of septation. Right? So if the mother is exposed to any teratogenic factor, what would you expect from the baby? The baby might have sentinel defects, ASDs, ASDs. So that's what we're trying to get at. So cardiac differentiation. Aside from other development, cells begin to differentiate. So all the cells come from a primitive cell, but later on they differentiate into different factors, their different functions. So if they don't, they say that cardiomyopathies can occur. So research have suggested that problems in cardiac differentiation have given rise to heart failure, volume overload, or pressure overload hypertrophy. So the implication of this, cardiac differentiation is being studied by researchers, and they say that they have started to, find a solution to prevent bad differentiation. So imagine those who are supposed to have heart failure won't have heart failure in the future. So they can replace the undifferentiated cells by differentiated cells. So heart failure will not occur. Imagine that. We'll live longer. Scary. So what are the developmental changes in cardiac function? We know that the fetal heart is different from the neonatal heart, and it's different from a child's heart, and it's different from an adult heart. So prenatally, the heart muscles undergo hyperplasia. So they just grow in number. But after that, they undergo hypertrophy. So they don't multiply anymore, but they grow bigger and bigger. It's because of your function. During the first few days of life, cardiac cells do not have their own sarcoplasmic reticulum. So they rely on extracellular calcium to stimulate the contraction of the heart. During this time, during fetal life, it's very important for the mother to think of the meds that we give to the mother. Because calcium, if the baby is relying on extracellular calcium, medications that could block calcium could affect the fetus. An example would be verapamil, which is a calcium channel blocker. So if the mother is taking verapamil, there will be no calcium intake in the fetal heart, and it would cause fetal bradycardia. So after birth and with fetal maturation and with further maturation, preload and afterload plays a great role in regulating your cardiac function. And there's also increase in cardiac relaxation. That's why as time goes by, your heart relaxes more, our heart rate goes down. Because during fetal life and neonatal life, the contraction is only affected by your calcium, and it doesn't rest too much. So it beats very, very fast. So we have rapid heart rates for our neonates. And then as we grow older, it begins to relax more. So what is the difference between your fetal and neonatal circulation? This is a table that highlights the difference between the two. Your fetal circulation is a parallel circuit. It's just like a box. Just goes in, goes to the other side, and then goes out. That's just it. Unlike in neonatal circulation, in adult circulation as well, it's a series. So from your inferior and your superior vena cava, it goes to your right atrium, down to your right ventricle, out the pulmonary artery towards the lungs, and via the pulmonary vein to the left atrium, left ventricle, and to the aorta, to the systemic circulation. Does that sound familiar? I hope it does. Okay? So is that's the main difference. First is parallel for fetal and the series for neonatal. Because fetuses don't need to breathe inside the womb, so their lungs are collapsed. So the circulation towards the lungs is closed. So the pulmonary vessels are constricted with very little blood flow because the lungs are not expanded. After the first breath, the lungs expand, so your pulmonary vessels vasodilate, and there's an increased blood flow in the lungs. So increased oxygen would stimulate this vasodilation. So imagine if the fetus is exposed to any hypoxic event, this would lead to your pulmonary vessels remaining to be vasoconstricted. The patient would have pulmonary hypertension. Your systemic blood vessels. So during fetal life, the blood is from the placenta. So the systemic vascular resistance is very low. Unlike during neonatal period, wherein after the removal of the placenta, there is an increase in systemic blood volume and in vascular resistance. Reductus arteriosus is the pathway between the pulmonary artery to the aorta. It provides the mixing of your oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. So during fetal life, this is present, this is patent, so it has no tone, and blood flows freely from your pulmonary artery to between the pulmonary artery and the aorta. On the other hand, with the exposure of oxygen to the child's first breath, there's reversal of flow. Now the aorta to the pulmonary artery because there's increased left atrial pressure. So this ductus is very sensitive to oxygen and other chemicals that can constrict it. So you can use drugs to constrict this ductus arteriosus. Also, if the patient is exposed to high O2 tension, if you give the patient too much oxygen, it can close your patent ductus arteriosus. Relaxes your foramen ovale. This is present in fetal life. So the foramen ovale is an opening between your right atrium and your left atrium. So this allows for the blood to go directly to the left atrium so that it can be distributed throughout the body. So this allows for the blood to shift from right to left. On the other hand, upon birth, there's an increased pressure in the left atrium. So this would reverse the shunt and close the foramen ovale. So this is a schematic diagram of your fetal circulation. You can see here. This is your umbilical vein, which carries your oxygenated blood towards your right atrium. Because of your foramen ovale, it goes straight into your left atrium, and then to your left ventricle and towards the aorta. It doesn't need to go to the lungs because they don't need to breathe inside the womb. Okay, so it's distributed throughout the body, and then blood is collected through the umbilical artery and back to the placenta. This picture here shows the oxygen concentration. Your ventricles do not receive much of the blood, that's why they're smaller. Okay, and then you can see here that there are not much oxygen on that side of the heart. So your lungs receive very little oxygen. There's little blood flow because this is constricted. And then your right side receives most of your oxygenated blood going towards your aorta. Okay, so blood flow determines the growth of fetal cardiac chambers. If there's no blood flow, that part will not grow. Okay, so we always have to remember that. So if there's stenosis in a certain part of your body, of your heart, it will not grow. So an example, if there is MV stenosis, your mitral valve stenosis, if it's not opening properly, it will not reach your. You can have a hyperplastic left lung, and if you have an AV stenosis, you can have a hyperplastic left heart syndrome. So during right now, we have interventions that can address these stenotic problems. So they can do fetal interventions to open up areas or valves, and they could allow for reperfusion of organ. So at birth, the mechanical expansion of the lungs, there is an increase in O2, which would result in rapid decrease in your pulmonary vascular resistance. This would allow for the blood to enter the right ventricle into the pulmonary circulation. Of the placenta, systemic vascular resistance immediately decreases. So with the decrease of your pulmonary vascular resistance, your left-right shunt will be reversed. So your neonatal circulation will now ensue. Your ductus arteriosus will start to close. After several days, this would properly close your ductus arteriosus and it becomes your ligamentum arteriosum. So this is the remnant of your ductus arteriosus. The increase in left atrial volume in the lungs would result in increase in pressure. This would then result in the closure of your foramen ovale. So once the placenta is removed, you have closure of your veins, your umbilical veins. Okay. So after a while, because during fetal circulation, your ventricles do not contract very much because blood bypasses them, so it's on the atrium. So after that, with neonatal circulation, your left and right ventricles begin to contract, so their walls thicken, and then their mass increases. So your LV output increases by around 200%. This is achieved through hormonal and metabolic signals, your catecholamines, and your density of myocardial beta-adrenergic receptors. It is important that you assess your neonates when they are born because some of the openings, such as your foramen ovale and your ductus arteriosus, can actually be life-saving in some events. An example would be in the presence of your cyanotic heart disease, such as transposition of great arteries, wherein there's no way for the blood to mix the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. So your patent ductus arteriosus will pave the way for this mixing of your blood. So always assess your patient whenever they are born. So what do we do when we need to maintain this patent ductus arteriosus? We give prostaglandin E to maintain it open, and then we give indomethacin if we need to close it. So when do we need to close it? When the patient when the patient is a preterm and has pulmonary hypertension. During neonatal circulation, there is a large decline to low adult volumes, which usually occurs in the first, second to third day. And then after that, your pulmonary vascular resistance continues to decline. That's why sometimes we only see signs and symptoms of heart failure and the presence of murmur in patients after they are 1 month or 1.5 months old. Because this is when your pulmonary vascular resistance begins to lower even more. Okay, so that's the time you can sometimes hear the murmur in congenital heart defects. So this only goes to show that at birth, it's not always that you hear a murmur for CHDs. Sometimes when you hear a murmur, it's almost always an innocent murmur or a normal murmur. We can hear murmurs for CHDs at around 1 to 1.5 months when the pulmonary vascular resistance have decreased significantly. So again, as I mentioned earlier, your neonatal circulation is different again from your older infant and to a child circulation. So there is less shunting because the foramens have closed already, or they have undergone functional closures already. In the presence of your cardiopulmonary diseases, there's a continued patency in your ductus arteriosus. This can allow for bidirectional flow of your blood and shunting. So your neonatal pulmonary vasculature responds quickly to oxygen. So when patients have, when there are hypoxemic insults during fetal life and at birth, you can expect that your patient will be very dyspneic, and then the patient will have pulmonary hypertension. Okay, so oxygen is a is a very important commodity for neonates. The first problem among fetuses are respiration and not their cardiac. It follows if the patient does not breathe, cannot breathe properly, his heart or her heart will fail. So they're very, very sensitive to oxygen, to low oxygen, to high carbon dioxide, and to acidosis. So these are the problems that we need to address during neonatal life. So they consume very high oxygen. That's why they're always sleeping. Okay? They have very high O2 need. They need oxygen for their heart. They need oxygen to grow, to lengthen their body, for brain development, for their whole growth and development. That's why babies sleep all the time. Because their energy is wasted just on growing, just consuming all that oxygen. Unlike you guys, you're not growing anymore. Just growing like that. When do these closes? This opening is closed. Around your foramen ovale closes at around 3rd month of life. Your ductus arteriosus closes at around 10 to 15th hour of life in normal neonates. But oxygen can greatly affect your closure or your patency of your ductus arteriosus. So if there's oxygen, it will close your ductus arteriosus. So imagine if you have a preterm infant who has signs of respiratory distress, the patient most likely has a patent ductus arteriosus. So what we can give indomethacin to close. On the other hand, if you're suspecting that the patient has a cyanotic heart defect and you need to maintain that patent ductus arteriosus, you give prostaglandin. Very good, guys. Cyanotic. So for premature infants, they're less responsive to. But for now, we have this rule of thumb not to give high O2 tension, not to give high oxygen content via your cannula or wherever, because this would result not only to closure of your PPA, but it can also give rise to retinopathy of premature preterm infants. So we only give low. Next, we proceed to important history and physical findings for your pediatric cardiovascular system. What are the most important in your history? First, your maternal and birth history. Of course, whatever your mother does, whatever your mother has, the baby, it would greatly affect your baby. So maternal illnesses, the course of pregnancy, the manner of delivery, any perinatal complications can greatly affect your fetal heart. Radiation exposure, drugs, and infections. Some maternal illnesses can cause cardiac problems. An example would be rubella, especially during the first trimester. If the mother has contracted rubella, it's more likely that the patient will have PEP. Another is like maternal diabetes. If the mother has diabetes, it would lead to higher risk of cardiovascular diseases, congenital heart defects. If the mother has SLE, the child would most likely have a congenital heart block. Again, the drugs, as I've said earlier, your isotretinoin is an important teratogenic agent. Your course in pregnancy, your manner of delivery, and during perinatal complications, wherein hypoxic insults can still happen. We have a patient before, wherein the mother was well just a few minutes ago, and then she suddenly died because of amniotic fluid embolus. So the amniotic fluid made its way to the lungs and the heart. So she immediately died. So we did a C-section with a dead mother. And the baby, as you can imagine, of course, because there's a hypoxic insult, so there's no oxygen going to the lungs. If there's no oxygen, there's no heartbeat. Okay? So the baby was resuscitated immediately. If ever the baby survived, he might have had pulmonary hypertension, he might have had hypoxic insults, so hypoxic encephalopathy. He died basically from pulmonary congestion, secondary to pulmonary hypertension. So those are very important things that you should ask the mother during the course of her pregnancy. Okay? So, onset of symptoms. When did the murmur start to be noticed? As I said, is it at birth or several weeks after? During birth, most likely it's an innocent murmur, except it can also be an aortic stenosis or a pulmonic stenosis. Because most of the CHDs we hear several weeks after life, around 4 to 6 weeks after, when the pulmonary vascular resistance significantly lowers. Exercise capacity. You ask the mother, how's the child during exercise? Is it fatigability? Those are the signs and symptoms that the patient has cardiac problems. But of course, this should be age-related. Do not expect a 1-year-old to be, or an infant to be climbing the stairs. Does she have difficulty climbing the stairs? Just 6 months. So it should be age-related. So like for smaller infants, you can ask about feeding. It's as simple as that. They get really, really tired when they are feeding. Most infants, when they have congestive heart failure, they sweat while they are feeding. So diaphoresis is an important factor for them. And then breathing after playing. For school-age children and adolescents, you can ask about how they cope in school, how are they during their PE, are they able to climb their stairs, or usual questions. Are there signs of respiratory distress? Is there rapid breathing, nasal flaring, cyanosis, chest retractions? So for smaller infants, you can see chest retractions here in your intercostal regions. And for bigger infants, you can see them here in your supraclavicular area. Okay? You can see nasal flaring. In some kids, they have grunting. Babies, they grunt. It's what we mean when you say grunting. It's forced expiration on a closed glottis. So they breathe heavily. That's grunting. O, diba? Meron pang bones na yun there. Okay? So what is cyanosis? What is cyanosis? Bluish discoloration. So you evaluate if it's at rest, or during exercise, or during crying. So some patients, you can see babies, it's very common for them to breath hold their breath when they're crying. So they turn blue and turn very, very red. Most mothers are concerned with that. So you have to evaluate properly if it's just a breath holding spell, or if it's something that you should be worried about. Chest pains are very unusual for the pediatric age group. And most of the chest pains of children are most likely musculoskeletal in origin or pulmonary, and there is a lesser chance that it's cardiac in nature. So you evaluate carefully for coronary etiology. Is it cardiac or non-cardiac? What's the location, the character, predisposing factors, and mitigating circumstances? I also have this patient. She was 15 years old, and she has been complaining on and off intermittent chest pains whenever she goes to school. So when we asked the patient what happened, is there anything happen at school, she said that she saw her classmate being stabbed by a stranger. That's why whenever she goes to school, she has chest pains. Okay, so you have to ask those problems, especially for adolescents. They're very emotional. They're very different. Okay? So what this just shows the table of your common differential diagnosis for chest pain. So as you can see, the most common are musculoskeletal in origin, second or pulmonary, and then less common are cardiac problems. But it's important that you do your physical examination and your history well so that you can differentiate one from the other. Other important in your history is past medical history. Is there recurrent upper respiratory tract infections? Because there are large shunts from left to right. The blood would flow back into the lungs. There's high blood flow towards the lungs, so you have a wet lung. This would predispose your child to repeated bouts of respiratory tract infections. So if you have a child who's been in and out of the hospital because of upper respiratory tract infections, think of your cardiac problems. Poor growth and development. Because their energy, as I mentioned earlier, they use so much time in just beating their hearts and for growing. So if there's a cardiac problem, they won't be able to use that energy for growing anymore. So they have growth failure. So most of the kids are below their Z-scores. Do you know how to how to measure your patients? To assess your growth and development, you measure your weight, your height, your head circumference. For children less than 2 years old, you measure your length when they are lying down. Okay? And then you plot on the growth chart. Have you seen that already? Right? So you use that always in your pediatric patients. Okay? Family history is very important. A history of sudden death would give you a clue that there might be familiar myocardial diseases, such as brugada. So what we call in Tagalog as bangungot. They won't wake up the next morning anymore. They just found them dead. So some say it's bangungot, some say it's hemorrhagic pancreatitis, but it's been studied to be actually brugada syndrome, an defect in your electrophysiology. So what is significant? Those family members who are 35 years old and below who died without no known causes. So that's significant. Also, early, less than 50 years old, onset of coronary artery diseases or stroke. So those are significant family history. Syndromes are also important. Down syndrome is the most common genetic syndrome, which would bring about your different cardiac anomalies, such as your ASD, atrial septal defect, your VSD, a combination of your AVSD. Now we go to physical examination. Of course, we do our PE always systematically. First, we do your general assessment before you proceed and focus on the heart. So for your general assessment, again, you check if there's cyanosis, abnormalities in growth and development. Are there chest wall abnormalities? Are there any evidence of respiratory distress? So do you hear a murmur? So you plot on the standard growth chart so that you can evaluate for growth failure or failure to thrive. Cyanosis is a late manifestation. Do not expect your patients who are less than 1 year old to have clubbing of your hands and your feet. Okay? Because this is a late manifestation secondary to decreased oxygenation. And also, cardiac problems are not the only ones that can cause your clubbing. So you have your respiratory problems, your kidneys, your chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases, and liver problems can also actually give rise to clubbing of your hands and feet. So these are best, your cyanosis is best observed in your nail beds, your lips, your tongue, mucous membrane. So you can differentiate your upper and your lower extremities. That's what's fun about the pediatric patients. We get to undress them always, unlike in adults. Can you undress your adult patients? No. Okay. We can kiss our pediatric patients. If you kiss an adult patient, you'll get sued. Okay? Don't do that. Okay. So you see the circulation, if there's a difference between the color in your upper and your lower extremities. Some can have coarctation of the aorta. So this is very common among infants and neonates, your prominent venous plexuses. These are here, cyanosis in the forehead. So it's common, you just have to reassure your parent. Heart failure signs, some may have hepatosplenomegaly. You have to assess for your peripheral edema. This would suggest congestive heart failure. Thank you very much. Okay, so your peripheral edema is very dependent. So if you are an infant and the infant is always lying down, do not expect the edema to be bipedal. Your edema would be found on the flanks because they're always lying down. If your child is already walking, expect the edema to be on the lower extremity. So it's on the dependent portion of the body. You evaluate also the heart rate. So remember that we have different heart rates for different age groups. For neonates, it's between 120 to 140 with 170 plus if they're crying or if they're in activity, 70 to 90 if they're asleep or relaxed. So for older children, it can be as low as 40, but 40 we're panicking if there's 40. So we evaluate that because the patient might have heart blocks and might need pacemakers. What is tachycardia? So tachycardia is defined as more than 200 in neonates, 150 in infants, 120 in older children. So you check for bradycardia, tachycardia, and arrhythmias. You palpate your pulses always. And when you palpate them on all fours, right, left, upper, and lower. You check if there's a difference between the strength of your pulse in your upper and your lower extremities, particularly your radial and your femoral pulse, because we might evaluate for coordination of the aorta. If the femoral pulse is weaker than your radial pulse, if there is a delay between the two, the patient might have coarctation of the aorta. Your blood pressure is also measured on all fours, right and left, upper and lower extremities. You can expect a difference of 10 millimeter mercury between the upper and lower extremities. If it's higher than that, there might be a problem. Okay? Whenever we check for the blood pressure of the pediatric age group, we don't just classify it like the adults. The normal range of the baby is, for adults, what's the normal? What's the range? It's between 90 to 120 over 60 to 80, right? 130 is now the new stage 1 hypertension, 140 is now the new stage 2. But for children, it's much different. You have to get their age, you have to get their sex, and we have to get their height. Because we have a table for that, which I will not show anymore to you because it's for pediatricians. So we use a different table. So it's just suffice to say that whenever you're dealing with a pediatric age group, remember always that we have different norms as compared to the adults. What might be normal for adults might not be normal for kids, and what might be normal for kids might not be normal for adults. Okay? So you inspect your jugular venous pressure, your pulses. So if there is increase in venous pulsation, you can suspect congestion. So this is a table that shows the pulse rates at rest. Now we proceed to a more focused cardiac examination. So you do this like in any other organ of the body. You do this systematically. First, you inspect, and then you palpate. Do you percuss anymore? No, we do not percuss that. And then we auscultate. First, you inspect. You inspect the thorax. You look for a precordial bulge. What's a precordial bulge? That's the prominence of your left sternum. So how do you evaluate for that? You let the patient lie flat, and then you stand at the foot of the bed, and then you look if the right and the left chest walls are equal. If the left is more than the right, if it's bulging, the patient most likely has left ventricular hypertrophy. Okay? Substernal thrust are also important. A hyperdynamic precordium would mean that there is volume overload or there is shunting, or it may be normal among patients who are thin. An overly silent precordium does not mean that there is no problem. This can be seen in obese patients, so you cannot see most of the movement of the heart if they're obese, but it can also be a severe cardiomyopathy. Your apical pulse should be palpated. So where can you find your PMI, your point of maximum impulse? Fifth interosseous space, left clavicular line. Okay, so it would estimate your heart size. If there's heart failure, your apical pulse will deviate. Also, if there are lesions, space-occupying lesions, like your congenital diaphragmatic hernia, it would displace your heart to the other side. Thrills are palpable nerves. Have you had thrills? Have you felt thrills already? No? No? Have you felt thrills? Oh, poor you guys. Haven't been thrilled yet. No. Thrills are palpable murmurs, so you can imagine it like this. So these are thrills. This is how thrills feel. Okay? So if you happen to have patients with cardiac problems in the future, try palpating them for thrills. So thrills are different from heaves. Heaves are much coarser, so they feel like this. When the heart is moving, it's like this. As opposed to thrills, they're like this. They're softer. Okay? So you look for the PMI, you look for where the murmur is most hurt best. And then that's where you palpate. You can feel your ribs. So auscultation, you use both sides of your stethoscope. You use your diaphragm and your belly. For high-pitched sounds, you use your diaphragm. And for your low-pitched sounds, you can use your belly. So whenever I have difficulty in hearing murmurs, I first focus on where it is loudest, and then I try to use my belly so that I can hear it. So we have different heart sounds, your first and your second heart sound. Your second heart sound is greatly affected by your respiration. This is because of the increase in filling time. That's why you have a splitting of your second heart sound during inspiration. It's normally split, but it can be seen in the absence of your splitting can be seen in ASD and in other defects such as your pulmonary artery hypertension. If there's a wide split, it can give you an inkling that the patient might have ASD, EPS, TAPCR, or total anomalous pulmonary vein or right bundle branch. If there's a single second sound, patient might have more severe cardiac problems. Sometimes in the pediatric age group, we mentioned earlier that there are no murmurs during the first weeks of life, and these S2 sound might be the most important thing that you hear during the early life. So that sometimes it's the only thing that we hear, the single S2 sound with no splitting during inspiration. You can also have your third heart sound and your fourth heart sound. So this is the cardiac cycle. It will be included in your exam. I hope you can recall this. Just review your cardiac function, your filling time, your closure, your opening of your valves. You also have your ejection clips. So your murmurs. Your murmurs are very important. You have to characterize them. You have to locate them. You have to know where they are radiating so that you have an idea what might be the problem of your patient. How many grades do we have for murmurs? 6. Wow! You have friends in the other section? You have good memory. Good job. Okay, 6. What's number 1? Grade 1. Very audible. Grade 2. Soft murmur. Grade 3. Loud murmur. Grade 4. With thrills. Thrills will differentiate your grade 4 from your grade 3. So please, in the future, do not write in the chart grade 3 to 4. You can write grade 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, but never 3 to 4. Because 4 has thrills, 3 does not. Okay? 5, grade 5 murmur is when you can hear the murmur even with just a slight touch. And then grade 6, even without direct contact with the chest, you can hear the murmur. Okay? So you have different murmurs, systolic ejection, pansystolic, or polysystolic, your continuous murmurs, your diastolic murmurs. No murmur does not mean that the patient does not have a heart disease. Please always remember that. Not all heart defects have murmurs, and not all murmurs are pathologic. Okay? Some because they are, let's remember always that murmurs are because of turbulence. If there's a smaller defect, there's greater turbulence, so we have a louder murmur. If we have a bigger defect, there's lesser turbulence, we have lesser murmur. You can't hear anything. Okay? Always correlate with your PE findings. So if there's no murmur, but you can see that the patient is congested, so most likely the patient has a large defect. Okay? But if there's a very loud murmur, and then the patient is up and about and running, most likely it's a very small defect. So again, loud murmurs does not equate to a structural heart defect. Sometimes it can mean a non-cardiac AV malformation, myocarditis, even severe anemia. For patients with hemoglobins of less than 80, you can hear hemic murmurs. It's because of the increase in oxygen demand. So the heart has to pump more, so that they have more turbulence, so they have murmurs for anemic patients. Hypertensive patients can also have murmurs because the turbulence brought about the opposing high systemic vascular resistance. So we have innocent murmurs. Are you innocent? I doubt it. Okay, so more than 30% of children have innocent murmurs. How can you evaluate an innocent murmur versus a pathologic murmur? Try changing the position of the patient. Examining the patient while he's lying down, sitting, standing, or on the side. If the murmur changes, it's most likely an innocent murmur. Okay? But if it remains the same, it's a pathologic murmur. What are the features that would suggest that your patient has a cardiac disease? It's murmurs that are pansystolic, grade 3 or higher. They're very harsh, located at the left upper sternal border, and with an early or mid-systolic clip and an abnormal S2. Abnormal S2s are very important, so they're most likely will give you an idea that the patient has CHD. So venous humps are also present in children. They're because of the turbulence in the blood flow in the jugular venous system. So they have no pathologic significance. You can just reassure your parents. So what diagnostics do we use for cardiac patients? The ever-reliable chest X-ray. So this is highly valuable, it's cheap, it has low radiation exposure. So you can assess the cardiac size. You can see if there are masses, you can see other respiratory problems or complications. So you assess the cardiac size by taking the cardiothoracic ratio, the ratio of your heart size to your thoracic. So a CV ratio of more than 50 is cardiomegaly. But for children, we have a different CV ratio. For children, it's more than 65, yeah, 0.6 to 0.65. That's the normal CV ratio. It's because sometimes the fields are obtained while they're lying down. The heart is like that. So it's more spread out. They have small thoracic cavities that's in relation to the heart. So that's why it appears big as compared to the thoracic cavity. We always request for a lateral view because it gives a good view of your AP chest dimension. It would give you a view if the patient has pectus excavatum or pectus carinatum. Also, you can evaluate if there is fluid in the pericardial sac. So we can sometimes see the pericardial effusion on lateral chest X-rays. Okay, so for children, always request a lateral X-ray, as well as a PA or an AP. So please remember the notches in your PA view. Okay, so I'm sure you all know that. Pulmonary vascularity is also evaluated in your chest X-ray. So if there's over-circulation because of shunts, you can see there's prominence of your pulmonary vasculature in your chest X-ray. Also, if there's under-circulation, it would give you an idea if there's an obstruction in the flow. You evaluate your esophagus using a barium esophagogram. Echocardiography is very important. CT scan sometimes, we don't use CT scan most of the time because it's very high in radiation. But now, we have pediatric radiologists as well. They can lower the exposure to radiation by adjusting the exposure, but still very high exposure for the kids. And there have been studies right now that children who have undergone CT scans have higher likelihood of cancers because of radiation exposure. So we don't use it much, but we have to use it for extracardiac or masses. There are highly suspecting nuclear masses. MRIs can also be used. So your electrocardiography or your ECG is different from your adult. For your adult, we use the 12-lead ECG. For kids, we use 13 or 15-lead ECG. Okay? We just transfer the other leads to the others. That's how we do it. Okay? So during the first few days of life, because the right atrium and the right ventricle, the right atrium of the left ventricle more of the right is pumping as compared to the left. So you have a right axis deviation because the right is more bigger during the life. On the other hand, after neonatal circulation, the left ventricle becomes the main pumper of the blood. It goes against higher systemic vascular resistance, so it becomes higher. So in ECG, you have a left axis deviation. So, but for kids, for the first few days, you have a right axis deviation. After that, after the first 48 hours of life, there's decrease in pulmonary vascular resistance, so your waves become to be negative. So sometimes this is called pathologic, but we have patients who they read, whom ECGs are read by adult cardiologists. They read this as abnormal, but for kids, it can be still normal and for the T waves up to adolescence. Okay, newborns, they also have a different QRS complex. They have a plane that lies between 110 to 180, but still positive for this deviation and deflection. So these are just different ECGs to show you that we have a different ECG for our newborns and for our adults. We'll not go into that. It's just important that you know that whenever you read an ECG for your pediatric patients, you always have to refer to the normal. It's not easy to remember all these things. For adults, it's not easy as it is, right? Do you find ECG reading easy? No, right? Good luck with pediatric ECG. Okay, it's much more difficult because we have different criteria for that. We have different criteria for left ventricular hypertrophy, for LAD, for RVH, RAP, for RBBD, and for all those types. So always remember to review the normal findings and to review your criteria for the pediatric patient. It's not the same as your adult patient. Okay. So when ventricular hypertrophy is a common finding in ECGs, and this should not only be relied on with the ECG for the pediatric patient because pediatric patients have thin chest wall so that the voltage is higher. So they have high deflections in your ECGs, so you do not rely on your voltages alone for the diagnosis of ventricular hypertrophy. How do we evaluate your ECGs? Always be systemic. So first, you check for the rate and the rhythm. Second, you check for the QRS axis, your segmental intervals, and your voltages, and your STP wave abnormalities. So we'll not be discussing all those. Okay. Another important component for your pediatric patients is your hematology. So your CBC would tell a big picture of your cardiac status. So for those with acyanotic heart defects and cyanotic heart defects with large defects, so some patients present with polycythemia. So this would predispose your patient because the patient is polycythemic, there's more sluggish blood flow, so the patient may go into stroke. You're higher risk for thrombosis, but at the same time, they're at high risk for bleeding. Most specifically for patients with TOM. So sometimes we have patients who have to have pediatric clearance prior to tooth extraction. Because when you extract the tooth, you have a thrombi there, which can dislodge and go to your brain, cause brain abscesses. Okay, so TOF patients have higher incidences of brain abscesses. What else? If there's polycythemia, but at the same time iron deficiency, this would increase the patient's risk for cerebrovascular events, for a stroke or an MI. So you use caution with diuretics. We use diuretics when we have congestive heart failure. But for patients with congenital heart defects, you have to be careful with this because this would deplete the volume, blood volume, and would increase further your hematocrit. So always check for your hemoglobin and your hematocrit for cardiac patients. So what do we do with patients with polycythemia? We have periodic checks of your hemoglobin and hematocrit. Some of them, if very high, if the hematocrit is very high, more than 65, we do partial exchange transfusion. So it's like a blood donation. We extract the blood to let it flow, and then we discard the blood. So it's just a waste of blood because you cannot donate it to another person. You will die of stroke, okay? You will die of complications from thrombosis. So sometimes we give FFP as replacement for the blood that is withdrawn from the patient. So we have these patients who have these procedures periodically, specifically for DOF patients. Your echocardiography or 2D echo is a very useful tool for evaluating your heart. So it would show the structure of your heart. It can also show the flow if you have regurgitations or insufficiencies in the heart. So your defects, your vegetations, endocarditis, your infections can be seen in your 2D echo. But it's not very wise to ask for 2D echo in all our patients. So we have to use this judiciously. We have to order it judiciously. So because 2D echo is very expensive, the Philippines is a very poor country. 2D echo is around 3,000 to 4,000 pesos. Not everybody is as rich as you guys. Okay? So always remember that. No, you're not. So you have to remember when to prescribe it. Reserving the patients whom you highly suspect to have cardiac problems. Okay? You can also use transesophageal echocardiography. So this is an echo which is done through the esophagus. So we particularly use this for intraoperative monitoring of patients who undergo surgery. So if patients have cardiac problems and we need to look at them during surgery, we use TEE to evaluate the heart function so that we can predict if there are complications during surgery. Exercise testing, this is not mostly done during the pediatric age group, but mostly for higher, younger children, older children. MRI, MRA, CT scan, different studies. So this can be used, these are useful, especially for artery diseases and for evaluation of masses. CT scan, we mentioned this earlier. It would reconstruct your great vessels. Okay, so sometimes we can also use your cardiac catheterization if there are, if we need to do invasive procedures because of stenosed arteries, or you can use it put balloons into PDAs or stenting during for a patent or one day. So we can use this also in children. Okay, so that is the first part of our lecture. The second part, what I mentioned earlier. Break? Still a long lecture. For those who can go and cyanotic heart defects. So your CHDs are among the top 10 causes of your infant mortality. You guys want to have a break? Because you seem very excited about your eyes and ears. Okay, I'm Pleasant to look at for 1,000 incidents with a global prevalence of 3 per 1,000 for severe and so on. The most common acyanotic heart defect is your ventricular septal defect, while the most common cyanotic heart defect is your tetralogy of Fallot. Heart defects occur sporadically, but there are certain risk factors, and we've mentioned that already in our review of your history and physical examination. So what are your factors? You have your maternal factors, your uncontrolled diabetes, which can lead to conotropal abnormalities, your febrile illnesses, your rubella, maternal PKU, use of retinoic acid, smoking, caffeine. So ladies, please do not drink caffeine while you're pregnant. That includes sodas, coffee, iced tea, C2, chocolates, so those are caffeinated. Okay? It can bring about, there's no clear association, but still, they have, some have if the mother has CHD, the sibling has CHD, associated chromosomal abnormalities like your Down syndrome or trisomy 21, right? And your non-cardiac lesions like your vascular. So your CHDs are divided into acyanotic and cyanotic, and they're further subdivided into increased blood flow and normal or decreased blood flow, pulmonary blood flow. So we'll only be discussing a few. For acyanotic heart defects, we have ASD, BSD, and PDA. We'll just be discussing those three. The others, I will leave to your imagination. I hope you sleep well tonight. So VSD, ventricular septal defects, because these are the most common. These are the ones that you see in the clinics most of the time. Okay? Okay, so your VSD, or ventricular septal defect, it's an abnormal opening in your ventricular septum. Again, when to expect the mother to be exposed, when you're during what particular part of embryogenesis, during cardiac septation. Ventricular septation occurs around 30 days, 26 days, and then atrial 30 days. Okay? So remember that. So it causes the communication between the right and left ventricles. This accounts for around 25% of your CHDs. There are 4 types of VSDs. You have perimembranous, infundibular, muscular, and ABSD. Your perimembranous is the most common VSD. So what happens during your VSD? It's very hard to discuss whenever everybody's talking. No, this is a very difficult. You have a left-right shunt, which occurs secondary to the flows from the left side of the heart to the right side of the heart. So this would lead to an elevated right ventricle and pulmonary pressure. And you have an hypertrophy of your left atrium and your left ventricle. So what are the signs and symptoms of your VSD? If there's a small VSD, to moderate, you have a small VSD with a measurement of 3 to 6 millimeters, they're usually asymptomatic, and 50% would spontaneously close. But for moderate to large VSDs, they have signs and symptoms of congestive heart failure, and they would require surgical repair within the first few months of life. So you have a murmur that is 2 to 3 or 4, and then holosystolic, which is heard best at the left sternum border, more prominent with a small VSD, but may be absent during a large VSD. There's a prominent P2 and a diastolic murmur. You have signs and symptoms of congestive heart failure. So failure to thrive, you have respiratory distress, the patient is diaphoretic, the patient is very, very small, the patient is breathing fast, either flaring, and all those stuff. Patient has respiratory tract infections repeated, and you have exercise intolerance. Symptoms develop within the first few months of life. So this is very common. Most of the patients that we see in the clinics who have CHF have VSDs, and they have to be repaired immediately before the patient goes further into failure to thrive, and they cannot tolerate surgery anymore. Okay, so they will die on the table. What's the treatment for VSDs? If there's a small VSD, no surgical intervention, no physical restrictions. Just assure the patient and just monitor the patient. So if you have a symptomatic VSD, we advise medical treatment using your afterloaders and your reducers and diuretics. So we often use furosemide, spironolactone, aldactone, and captopril for VSD patients. They serve as diuretics and afterloaders. So they will ease the load of the heart. What are the indications for surgical closure? If those patients have large VSDs and have continued failure to thrive, they're very symptomatic. If they're between 6 to 12 months of age with a large VSD and pulmonary hypertension, if they're more than 2 years old, but very low ventricular perfusion is matched, and if there's a superficial VSD regardless of the size. Next is your ASD. This is another common acyanotic defect. But this is the more benign CHD. So it's an opening between your right atrium and your left atrium via your patent organ body. So this accounts for around 10% of your CHDs. There are three major types of your ASD: your secundum, your primo, and your sinus venosus ASD, wherein your secundum ASD is the most common. So this shows your secundum ASD. In here, we have the defect between your left and right atrium. Your sinus venosus is located more on the upper portion. So for ASDs, they sometimes have what do you call this? Arrhythmias because they have nodal involvement. So ASD patients rarely present with signs and symptoms of congestive heart failure and other cardiovascular symptoms. So they are mostly asymptomatic, but some have easy fatigability and mild growth pain. Some patients do not have cyanosis most of the time, but they do if they have significant pulmonary hypertension. Your murmur would appear to be 2 to 3 or grade 4 systolic ejection murmur, heard best of your left sternal border, and also a mid-diastolic murmur at the left lower sternal border. There's a hyperactive recording with RV heave, and a split vessel. What's the treatment? So you can do surgical catheterization, and closure is performed between 2 to 5 years old because if it's the patient is less than 2 years old, there's a risk of higher complications such as significant pulmonary hypertension. So we reserve surgery for patients between 2 to 5 years old. If there is pulmonary hypertension already, interventions are very late and mortality can ensue in less than 1% of patients. Another common asymptomatic heart defect is your PDA, your patent ductus arteriosus. This is the persistence of your ductus arteriosus. It did not close after your first week of life. So this accounts for around 10% of patients with CHDs, and some of them have concomitant CHDs as well, like your TOF, your TAP VR, and your coarctation of aorta. So there's a male, more females are inflicted with PDA with at least 1 ratio. So what happens? Because of the high pressure in your aorta, the blood will shift from left to right through the patent ductus arteriosus. So the extent of your patency of your ductus arteriosus would determine the signs and symptoms of the patient. If it's a bigger defect, you have more shifting, more shunting. But if it's a small defect, the pressures inside the lungs, your arteries, are normal. If you have a large PDA, the pressure of your pulmonary artery is equal to the systemic pressure. So 70% of your cardiac output is reverted back to the circulation, the pulmonary circulation. So you have pulmonary hypertension. The patient has a wet lung, the patient has pulmonary symptoms as well. So this can lead to pulmonary vascular diseases. If you have a small PDA, they're usually asymptomatic. If you have large PDAs, you can have signs and symptoms of congestive heart failure, growth restriction, and failure to thrive. So you have bounding arterial pulses because it's on the aorta. But you have greater pressure in the aorta. So you have bounding arterial pulses, a wide pulse pressure. You have an enlarged heart. And this is the classic murmur of your PDA. So this is very important. This is almost always asked in all exams. So whenever you see a continuous machinery type murmur, sometimes they can put there with radiation to the back. That's a PDA. Okay, so always remember that. Continuous machinery type murmur. Some can have a mid-diastolic murmur at the apex. So what do we do again? What drug do we use to close the PDA? Endomethacin. Some kids, we use ibuprofen if we don't have the medicine. Okay? What do we do to inhibit? If we need to make it patent, we use prostaglandin. We use this for premature infants. So PDA closure can also be done surgically using stents or coils. So we use closure surgically if there's heart failure or to prevent pulmonary vascular diseases. They can be dilated as well with a mortality of less than 1%. So there's a high chance that your patients will live long with PDA with not too much complications. So I have many patients with PDA. Okay? So that's it for the acyanotic heart defects. The most common is TOF. Okay. So your TOF, or your tetralogy of Fallot, it's called tetralogy because it has 4 components malformations. You have your right ventricular hypertrophy, you have the big right heart, the right ventricle, you have a stenosis pulmonary valve, you have transposition of your aorta, it's almost overriding to the right, and you have a ventricular septal defect. If you have a PDA with your TOF, that's what we call a POF, a pentalogy of Fallot. Okay. So your RVF is secondary to your stenotic pulmonary artery. Of course, if it's closed, the blood will pull to the right atrium, making it the right ventricle, making it hypertrophied. And then your transposition of aorta, you have a displaced aorta. Your VSD allows for the mixing of your oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. And your pulmonary vessel stenosis would determine the degree of your cyanosis. So if there's severe stenosis in your pulmonary vessel, the patient would most likely be very, very cyanotic. Okay? So they say that TOF arises from destruction of your neuronal crest cells. And then in the laboratory, you have identified the same cells destructing as well. On the other hand, we still don't know which causes TOF. What are your clinical presentations? So as I mentioned earlier, your cyanosis is highly dependent on the degree of your pulmonary stenosis. More stenosis, more cyanosis. Okay? There's growth retardation because of insufficient oxygen and nutrients. And there's shortness of breath during exercise. TOF patients can also have PET spells. So this happens in children with TOF when they are crying or when they are feeding. This is mostly noted between 2 to 3 age of life, 2 to 3 years of life, and sometimes they pass out, they lose consciousness. Okay, so what do we do? Whenever we see patients with PET spells in the ER, we give morphine, we give oxygen, and we let them assume an ejac position. So you position the patient on a fetal position like this. That would open the pulmonary stenosis valve. Okay, so that would resume circulation throughout the body. Again, oxygen, morphine, and fetal position. Okay, we have patients, older children, when they have death spells, they just sit down like that. They don't go to the ER anymore. They know how to treat themselves. Okay? It's sad and amusing at the same time. Okay. So what exams and tests do you do for your TOF patients? Their CBC picture, they have polycythemia. They have RBH or ECG, and you have boot-shaped heart. This is attributed to your left ventricular hypertrophy. So because your right ventricle is very big, it pushes the heart downwards and raises the apex. So you have a boot-shaped heart. Okay, so in your echo would reveal the VSD. Right axis deviation in ECG. So what are the surgical interventions function. So we have to repair your VSD and your stenosis pulmonale vessels. So what you do, you repair this, you open it up, and then you put a patch on your VSD. You correct your overriding aorta, place it on the left side of the heart. Your RVH, you cannot do anything about it. Okay? So that's how you do the repair of your DOF. Another common cyanotic heart defect is your TGA, your transposition of great arteries. So in this transposition, as the word itself implies, your two great arteries, your aorta and your pulmonary arteries are transposed. They're on the position, they're interchanged. Okay? So this accounts for 5% of your CHDs. 45% have complex TGAs, meaning they have combinations of VSD or left ventricular outlet obstruction and your coarctation of the aorta. So some have simple TGAs with no concomitant heart defects, but these are more deadly because the blood cannot circulate. There's no way for the blood, oxygenated and deoxygenated blood to mix. So repair should be done early in the newborn age. A very good way to screen for your patients, to screen your newborns for CHDs, for cyanotic heart defects, is to do a pulse oximetry. So that's what we do. At birth, we do pulse oximetry. The usual O2 sats is around 90% at birth, and it goes up to 94 to 100 after several hours of life. But for patients with cyanotic heart defects, they would go as low as 80s, 70s. So I have this patient who I've seen at birth, and then we identified that his O2 sats were around 77. So we did an echo. It turned out the patient had TGA without a PDA. So imagine if you didn't catch that, the patient will die, most definitely. Okay? So it's a cheap screening, cheap screening, and it's non-invasive. So you can do it at a clinic before discharge of your pediatric patients. Okay? Highly recommended. It's one of the part of the guidelines already. So this is how the normal heart looks like. You have your pulmonary artery arising from your right ventricle, and your aorta arising from your left ventricle. On the other hand, in TGA, they are interchanged. So imagine the oxygenated blood is pumped to the circulation system. So there's no way for the blood to mix. How will it get oxygenated? If you have a PDA, it would allow the mixing of your blood from your aorta to the pulmonary artery. So this is when you need a PDA to be present. Okay? Or if you have a VSD, but still, it's still deoxygenated. So the PDA is very important. So for these cases, need to give the patient prostatic need. So we repair this, of course. If you don't repair it, the patient will die. So how do we do the repair? You can do either an atrial switch or an arterial switch. So during atrial switch, the right atrium becomes the left, and the left becomes the right. In your arterial switch, you switch the arteries back into their supposed to be positions. So this is how you do your atrial switch. So you see here. So the left becomes the right. It receives the deoxygenated blood so that it can pump the heart to the lungs. And then the right becomes the left so that it will receive the oxygenated blood and then put it into the circulation. So that's the atrial switch. You switch the atrium. And then you have your arterial switch. Make them look normal again. So you bring the pulmonary artery back to the right, and then the aorta back to the left. Sounds so simple, no? Sounds so simple. There are very many complications ventricular atrial switch, you can have right ventricular failure, you can have sinus node problems, tachyarrhythmias. You can have progressive heart failure, which necessitate heart rhythmia. What are your complications of the arterial switch? You can have stenosis of your coronary arteries, and then you can have pulmonary stenosis. Okay? But the large majority of our arterial switch do not have long-term complications. So it's more preferred than the atrial switch. Another is your coarctation of the aorta. So when we say coarctation, there's a narrowing in your aorta. This accounts for around 5 to 8% of your CHDs. So this is the schematic diagram of your coarctation when there is a narrowing in your aorta. Okay, so if this is narrowed, you can imagine that the proximal side of your aorta is large, and it would cause enlargement of your left side of the heart. It would also stiffen your aorta, thereby increasing the chance of your patient to have atherosclerosis. So sometimes they're not detected during childhood. Some can persist during adulthood. So it's very important that we check the blood pressure of children 3 years old and above. So for all pediatric age groups, 3-year-old and above, you check the blood pressure, all fours, upper and lower extremities, right and left. Always palpate your pulses, all fours. Surgery is done, of course, to correct this heart defect. You can do catheterization, or they can do several more invasive procedures. Okay, so what are the indications? These are the indications. There's more than 50% narrowing in your aorta. Or if there's a very big difference between your upper and lower extremity blood pressure. So these are just the schematic diagrams of your surgical procedures. They can put a patch in your narrow part. They can do end-to-end anastomosis. They can remove the narrow part and then suture them back together. They can open up the narrow part and put a patch. They can take off one of your main arteries from the aorta and place it as a patch or call this a mesh. And then they can also bypass the narrow. Okay. So other CHDs, you can do this for in your own interest. Okay, last part is acquired heart diseases. So as I've mentioned earlier, we're only going to discuss RHD and Kawasaki disease. Rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease. So these slides are from the Philippine Society of Pediatric Infectious Disease. RF and RHD. So there's a difference between RF and RHD. For the first episode, we term it as RF. If there's a complication to the heart, there's a remnant, we call it RHD in the succeeding episodes. Okay, so the first, it's always RF with carditis or without carditis. Then for the succeeding episodes, if there's a problem in the heart as a result of the RF, that's when we call it as RHD. Okay, it's the most serious complication of RF. So rheumatic fever is the most common cause of acquired heart disease in children and young adults. It is characterized by diffuse inflammation of your connective tissues of the heart, your joints, your brain, blood vessels, and subcutaneous tissues. So it causes fibrosis of the heart valves, leading to RHD. So it's different between developing and developed countries, but it's still rising. It has not decreased in the past years, with a median age of 10 years old. And it's a major cause of morbidity and mortality in the country. So this shows the Asian sex distribution, local data based on the data of the Philippine Pediatric Hospital, Philippine General Hospital. And for developing countries, it's around 18.6. Lucky for us, we're only about 0.6, but it has increased over the past 10 years. For developing countries, US has only 0.7, but surprisingly, Australia has a very large incidence of around 12.3 per 1,000. say it must be the kangaroos. So what causes your RF, your RHD? It's your group A beta hemolytic strep. So this is very important. It's almost always asked. Group A beta hemolytic strep. It's a capsulated organism which has a non-antigenic capsule, but its cell wall has several has M protein which induces antibodies and causes its pathogenicity. So this is a picture of your strep throat. It's beefy red with exudates. So that's your strep throat. Okay, so your RHD always follows your pharyngitis. So you cannot have RHD or RF if you didn't have strep pharyngitis. If you have like streptococcal infections, superficial skin infections from strep, you cannot have RF or RHD. It's from pharyngitis, and it will develop several weeks after the infection. So your group A beta hemolytic strep organism would invade your epithelial cells and damage and invade the human tissues and makes it quick to the heart. So these are the enzymes involved in the pathogenicity of your GAS. The actual mechanism of RHD is really unknown up to now. So they're still studying it, and they're still studying it, but it's postulated that it has an autoimmune or hypersensitivity mechanism to the pathogen. So as I mentioned earlier, our symptoms of RF occurs several weeks after a strep throat or strep pharyngitis, and then only infections from the pharynx would result to RHD. Organisms are spread via the oral and respiratory secretions. Full manifestations can be suppressed by NSAIDs and aspirin. So some patients would complain of fever that's refractory to paracetamol, but when they give NSAIDs like methylenic acid or aspirin or your ibuprofen, the fever dies, the pain and discomfort decreases. But it could return again. So the fever is very, very high, around 39 degrees and above, with no characteristic pattern. And it can be low grade in light carditis. It can be absent in moderate. So fever can persist up to 2 to 3 weeks if without treatment. So if you have a patient who has prolonged fever with tachycardia, think of RH. So the diagnosis is made using the Jones criteria. Okay, the Jones criteria, you need 2 major criteria and 1 major plus 2 minor. Okay, for a diagnosis of RF, plus an evidence of group A beta hemolytic strep infection. If there's no evidence of group A strep infection, you cannot fully diagnose RF. Okay, so always remember your Jones criteria plus an evidence of GAS infection. So your Jones criteria was established to aid you in diagnosis of your initial attack, but it will not give you your prognosis. It will not tell you if it's active or inactive, if it's chronic, acute, and it cannot measure your activity. So a high number of criteria met for the Jones criteria does not mean that you have a very severe disease. Okay? What are the components of your Jones criteria? So for your major, for you to have to remember easily your Jones. J for joints. O is like a heart or carditis. N is your substage nodules. E is erythema. S for silent aspiration. These are the minor manifestations of your Jones criteria. So carditis is mostly directed by a new murmur or tachycardia out of proportion from the fever. So if you have a fever that's just 37.8, but the heart rate is up to 140, think of RH. Or a new murmur, there's a previous murmur with an onset of a new one, think of RH. So RF with carditis is pancarditis. We have inflammation of the whole heart. We have endocarditis, we have myocarditis, we have pericarditis. valve is your mitral valve. So you have these manifestations: valvulitis, resting tachycardia, muffled heart sounds, valve rhythm, friction rub, and signs of congestive heart rate. We have a term, echocarditis. So what do we mean by echocarditis? This is carditis seen only in echocardiogram. So you have no signs and symptoms of carditis. You don't have tachycardia, you don't have muffled heart sounds, but when you do an echo, you see RHD. That's still RHD. But if you have signs of RHD without the echo findings, that's not RHD at all. So that would exclude your diagnosis of RHD. So if you have an echo positive for RHD without symptoms, still RHD. Okay? So arthritis, so J for joints, arthritis in RF is most frequent and benign. It is asymmetric and migratory, meaning it shifts from one large joint to another. So today, the pain is here, the next day it's here, the next day it's here. So it's polyarthritis and it's migratory. It involves large joints, your knees, your ankles, your elbows, your wrists, and it heals without sequelae. Your chorea is known as St. Venus's dance or chorea minor. So have you seen Elvis Presley? Do you know Elvis Presley? Yes? Good. Other section doesn't know Elvis Presley. There you go. Nice. So remember how he moves? He does this like this. So chorea looks something like that. It's non-purposeful movement. Okay? So it's non-purposeful movement, involuntary movement. Sometimes they have emotional agility. When you have chorea, this alone, even without other major signs and symptoms, will qualify for diagnosis of your heart. Okay? So far I've seen like 2 patients with chorea. This is a late manifestation of RF and will disappear up to 1 to 2 weeks after without treatment. Your erythema marginatum is a distinctive non-pruritic transient rash. It has a pale center and serpiginous margins. It's like a snake. It blanches when you touch it, when you apply pressure, and it's just seen on the trunk without the face. It is induced by heat. So this is how it looks like. It's pale with a serpiginous border, and it's more on the trunk without rashes on the face. Your subcutaneous nodules are small fur nodules. They are painless, freely movable, and it's often seen with carditis. So these are photos of your subcutaneous nodules. See those small nodules. So again, Jones criteria, RF is likely if you have 2 major or 1 major plus 2 minor criteria plus GAS evidence. So without GAS, no diagnosis of RF. Okay, so how do we evaluate for GAS? You do ASO. A high ASO titer or your anti-streptococcus antibody. That would give you a reading that it's GAS infection or a positive throat culture, but it's easier to do ASO. Your ASO would be high during the peak also of your signs and symptoms. So it's most likely to be seen if you're very symptomatic, get an ASO. That's most likely when you do that. So the normal value is around 200. If it's more than 200, that's positive for GAS. It would confirm your diagnosis. However, it would reflect past and not present infection. So this is not useful for those with chronic RHD to know if it's active RHD right now. Okay? So it will be helpful only for studies as well as to diagnose your new RHDs. What else are needed what else can be expected for your patients with RF? In CBC, you have your anemia and leukocytosis. ECG, you have sinus tachycardia, first degree AV block. Some have second degree AV block.
chest X-ray is normal, some have cardiomegaly, and some have pulmonary congestion secondary to angina. Your acute phase reactants are high, they're positive. Acute phase reactants such as your CRP and ESR are non-specific. Okay? So this just says that there's inflammation. So you expect it to be high. But you can use it to monitor treatment if it's responding to your treatment. It will go lower. So your chest X-ray, you see cardiomegaly, some may be present, but if you have CHF, you can see a large heart. If you have myocarditis, there's no cardiomegaly. There's moderate, there can be mild cardiomegaly. And of course, severe carditis, you have a very large heart with pulmonary congestion. This is an X-ray film of a patient with RHD prior to the treatment. So you can see the patient has a very large heart with increased vascular markings that would depict pulmonary congestion. After treatment, the heart size has decreased significantly back to normal with decrease in pulmonary vasculature. So there's no congestion anymore. So it's like magic. So echocardiography is the main imaging of choice in the presence of RHD. Again, if you have echo finding of RHD, that's RHD, even without the symptoms. No to the echo findings, that's not RHD. Okay? So what are the findings? You have thickening of the valves, particularly your mitral valves, your anterior mitral valve defect. There's enlargement of your left chambers. There's pericardial effusion. Some have valvular innervation. It depends on the severity and the involved valve. So these are just echoes showing the regurgitant flow from your left ventricle to your left atrium. You can see the stenotic valve. Also the stenotic valve in your regurgitation. So you have regurgitation, mild regurgitation in myocarditis, and severe in severe carditis. So as you can see, mitral valve is a tricuspid valve. Bicuspid. So two cusps, they're supposed to be separated, but during RHD, they're almost fused together, and they rarely move. So you have a stenotic right mitral valve. Okay. Again, your stenotic valve, you can see the thickening of your valve leaflet. And you can see here, as well as your vegetations during the pathway. How do we manage RF? So to eradicate your streptococcus, we give antibiotics, of course. Penicillin B, 250 to 500 milligrams. This is otherwise known as Sumapen locally. Your phenoxymethyl penicillin. Your benzathine penicillin injection, 0.6 to 1.2 million units per IM, or your erythromycin, 250 milligrams, 3 times a day for 10 weeks. We also use anti-inflammatory to lessen the carditis, as well as to lessen the arthritis. So we use either ASA, aspirin, at high doses for the anti-inflammatory effect, for up to 80 to 100 milligrams per kilo per day. Or prednisone at 2 milligrams per kilo per day, up to 6 weeks. Complete bed rest with modified activity. Okay? So you don't give pressure to the heart, so you have to have complete bed rest. Primary and secondary prophylaxis. Primary is done to prevent the first episode of your RM. And secondary is to prevent recurrent episodes of your RM. So what do we use for secondary prophylaxis? Again, penicillin or benzathine penicillin. How long do we give secondary prophylaxis? If the patient has arthritis only, at least 5 years. If the patient has carditis, at least 10 years. So imagine injecting your 8-year-old patients to 10 years if they have carditis. Every 21 days. So primary prevention of RF, again, we mentioned that earlier. And then secondary prevention of RF. So our first choice is benzathine every 4 weeks. Although it has been seen in studies that 3 weeks is better than the 4 week interval. So it's either 2 to 3 weeks or 4 weeks. But 3 weeks is better. Okay? How long do we give? Secondary prophylaxis. If you have RHD, or RF with carditis, and a residual heart defect, you give it for more than 10 years or until 40 years old, whichever is longer. So if you diagnose the patient at 8 years old, the patient will inject for 32 years. Right? And it's very, very painful. So that's why we include lidocaine in the injection so as to decrease the pain. Because some patients pass out because of the pain. It's very painful. I've tried it before because we had to get shots as prevention for diphtheria. Because we had diphtheria in the ER. So it's very, very painful. Okay? If you have carditis but without a residual valvular disease, so 10 years or well into adulthood. But if you have no carditis, the patient can inject up to 5 years or until 21 years old. Still very long. But still very draining and still very emotionally challenging for our patients. Okay? So as I mentioned earlier, they've been debating on which to use, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, or every 4 weeks. But according to meta-analytic studies, the 2 or 3 weeks is better than 4 weeks. Okay, so we stick to the 21-day interval. Okay, last topic. For the quiz. Febrile illness, infants and childhood. So this occurs in patients less than 5 years old. Okay, since this is the last topic, can you please lend me your ears? Please. There's primary systemic vasculitis, mostly involving your medium-sized vessels, with predilection to the coronary arteries. So the top 3 countries with high incidence of Kawasaki, of course, number 1, Japan, where it was discovered by Kawasaki, followed by Korea and Taiwan. So according to the local data by the Philippine Pediatric Society, we have almost 2 million cases between 2007 to 2014. Peak incidence of KD, as I mentioned, is between 1 to 5 years old, with male preponderance. The etiology of KD is still unknown. So whenever patients and relatives ask me, Doctora, how did this happen to my baby? Why I need it? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. We're still studying it. We don't know how it came about. We don't wish it to happen to anybody, but it did. Okay, so we still don't know, but they say there's an infectious component and some genetic component. And they said that some people are genetically more susceptible to the infection or to the immunologic agent. So what are your principal diagnostic criteria? Your fever, eye changes, your rash, your hand and foot changes, your mouth changes, and your lymph nodes. So we'll be discussing each one. Your fever. Your fever is high, lasting for more than 5 days. It's more than 39.9 degrees. It may be intermittent. It can last up to 1 to 2 weeks without treatment, and may continue up to 3 to 4 weeks. It does not respond to antipyretics and can resolve immediately after giving IVIG. IVIG is your treatment choice for Kawasaki. So after 1 to 2 days of your IVIG, the fever rises. Your eye changes. So in more than 75% of patients, you see eye changes. There is bilateral conjunctivitis without exudates. So they have sore eyes but without a discharge. And then there's limited sparing. The limbus is around here. So you have a very red eye, but white here in the limbus. So that's conjunctival injections with index finger. Your rash in Kawasaki is seen in more than 90%. So it's polymorphic, means it can be erythematous, it can be pruritic, it can be macular, vascular. So it's very, very confusing, especially for clinicians. But the most important thing, they desquamate after several days. Okay? They have like a sandpaper rash. They start out to be very, very wet, and then later on, they start to desquamate. Please do not confuse KD with scarlet fever. Because scarlet fever, a streptococcal infection, can also present with sandpaper-like rashes. Okay? But some manifestations are not present in scarlet fever, like your conjunctivitis. It's not seen in your scarlet fever. Okay? So the two can be misdiagnosed for each other, or interchangeable. So it's never a vesicular or bullous lesion. So if you have vesicular or bullous lesions, think of your staphylococcus staphylococcus skin syndrome, or your PEM, your what else? Other superficial skin infections. Crusting on your BCG side. So you check your BCG side. Extremity changes. These are seen in 50 to 80% of your cases. Initially, there's erythema of your palms and soles, and gradually they become indurated and painful. So you see here, this is a hand with an infant with KD. It has palmar erythema and swelling. So that's how it looks. It's a glove-like pattern. So you have your gloves because it's only here and not on the forearm. Okay, it desquamates, and then sometimes there's what do you call this? The skin here in your periapical region detaches. Okay, so that's how you diagnose it. Mucositis, the very famous strawberry tongue. Okay, there's a prominent papillae in erythema of your tongue with no oral exudates or ulcerations. Your strawberry tongue can also be seen in scarlet fever. Okay, but in scarlet fever, sometimes it's accompanied with your exudates because it's streptococcal in origin. And then also, as I mentioned, there are other criteria in KD not present in scarlet fever. Your lymphadenopathies is seen in 70% of cases, but this is the least common. Remember this always. It's unilateral, one-sided only, non-tender. So unilateral, non-tender, non-supportive lymphadenopathy with the node larger than 1.5 centimeters in diameter. Okay? So that will give you, if you see the exam, unilateral lymphadenopathy, Kawasaki. Okay? So cardiovascular findings are not part of your diagnosis. They're not part of the criteria, but your cardiovascular problems are the most dreaded complication of Kawasaki disease. So in the acute phase, you have tachycardia out of proportion from your fever. And then you have gallop sounds and muffled blood disease. So this would aid you in the diagnosis of Kawasaki disease. Some patients also have arthritis. So this, because it's a widespread inflammation of your vessels. Other signs and symptoms include urethritis. So some patients are mistaken, initially diagnosed as urinary tract infections. Later on, just to be discovered the patient has Kawasaki disease. So you can have elevated liver enzymes, arthritis, vomiting and diarrhea, and aseptic meningitis. Okay, this is just a table showing you the course of the illness. What are the laboratory findings? So you expect your WBC to be elevated with high granulocytes, okay, with high neutrophils or secretaries. Leukopenia is rare. So you have anemia, but your RBCs are normocytic and normotropic. Your platelets are very, very high. This is very characteristic of Kawasaki disease. So you have high platelet count, you have thrombocytosis, and it peaks during the third week of illness, returns to normal 4 to 8 weeks after. Sometimes they have thrombocytopenia, but mind you, when the patient already has thrombocytopenia, it's a bad sign. The patient is dying. Okay? Also, it increases the risk for rupture of your coronary aneurysm. Your inflammatory markers are likewise elevated. Of course, it's an inflammation, so your inflammatory markers are high. But these are non-specific. Other laboratory findings, because the liver is inflamed, so you have elevated transaminases, you have hypoalbuminemia, hyponatremia, elevated cholesterols. Your urinalysis shows steroid pyuria, lumbar puncture, aseptic meningitis, and you have elevated We also have a thing called incomplete Kawasaki disease. So it's when your signs and symptoms do not qualify for a complete Kawasaki disease. So for those cases, we do echocardiogram. So echo should be done when suspecting for incomplete Kawasaki disease, such as in cases of infants less than 6 years old with fever of more than 7 days, and then laboratory evidence of systemic inflammation with no other explanation for febrile illness. So the most dreaded complication of your Kawasaki disease is your aneurysm. So you have different types of your aneurysm. How do you qualify them? They are either small, medium, large, or giant, okay, according to their measurements. Okay, so how do we treat Kawasaki? There are still debates and ongoing studies on the efficacy of your IVIG, but for now, it's enough for you to know that the treatment that we still use that we adhere to is giving IVIG or intravenous immunoglobulin. So you give it at 2 grams per kilo within 10 days. It's debated, but according to numerous studies, the 10 days is the golden period, the window period. If it's more than 10 days, it would not decrease the likelihood of coronary aneurysms in your patient. Okay? So how much do IVIG cost? A 5-gram vial costs 15,000 pesos. So for example, you have a 5-year-old who weighs 20 kilograms. You need 2 kilograms per kilo, so that's 20 times 2, 40 grams, divided by 5 grams per vial. So you need 8 vials of IVIG. 8 times 15,000, 120,000 pesos for 1 treatment. Usually, the fever lyses after giving IVIG. But if the fever doesn't go away after IVIG, you can repeat IVIG 2 days after giving it. So that's another 120,000 pesos. So the implication is you have to get it right. It's not a cheap disease. Okay? If you diagnose it, you have to diagnose it right. Okay? Okay, so what else do we do? We give aspirin, as I said earlier, high dose for the anti-inflammatory effect at 80 to 100 milligrams per kilo per day. And then after the fever lyses, we reduce it to the for that thrombotic effect at 3 to 5 milligrams per kilo per day up to 6 to 8 weeks after the disease. So there have been researches also in other medications, but we still use IVIG. What are the diagnostic pitfalls when it comes to Kawasaki Steroid are treated as urinary tract infections. CS findings are treated as viral meningitis. So it's very important to do a thorough physical PE, physical examination and a history, so that you can diagnose Kawasaki disease. Okay? The last is just monitoring of your patients. So how long do we monitor them? We do the echo 2 to 3 weeks upon diagnosis for baseline, 2 to 3 weeks after, 1 month, 3 to 4 months, 1 to 4 years, and every 5 years. So that's how long we monitor patients. So it's a very, very expensive disease. Okay? And then annual follow-up for chronic diseases. Of course, we have coronary problems. So the patient is at risk for aneurysms and coronary artery episodes, your strokes and MIs. Okay, are there any questions?